Hi everyone, Thursday night, 9 o'clock. Of course, it's time for the Handicap Rugby Chat that matters. We've got loads of rugby to talk about this weekend. May not be the same next weekend because I see Super Rugby Trans-Tasman, of course, the last round of group matches. Also, Rainbow Cup SA, although we do have, I believe, the Curry Cup starting next week, so that should be an interesting one. And yeah, we're going to be talking Super Rugby, we're going to be talking Rainbow Cup, and we'll also touch on the Gallagher Premiership as well. I've got two guests to talk you through it. I'm going to start off with one of the regulars. He's at the top of the screen at Oraclepedia or Oracle Rugby. Oracle, what a weekend it was last week, and I say that in the negative sense because I had an absolute shocker, and the only money I won was off you, and I still lost money on that match. Can you believe it, the Lions game?
Brent, I got to tell you, I'm smiling because it's a very expensive year for me. And yes, I lost last week, but honestly, in the greater scheme of things, it was very small to what I could have lost had I had a lot of money. And I remember getting a great horse the other day. I picked a horse in the first race at Greyville a couple of weeks ago, and Sean Nicholas sent me a message and he said, geez, the bookmakers are pretty lucky I don't have a lot of money this year. And he's right. But at the same time, I reckon last weekend I would have done an absolute packet if I had money. So I was very lucky. I don't have a lot of money at the moment. That's just because of my personal life right now. Excuse me. But geez, I'm surprised you invited me back this week because I don't think I got anything right. I think I got them all wrong.
Well, I wanted to see if I could tempt you into another bet, of course. But I take your point. It's a bit like being limited by a bookmaker. It seems like a horrible thing until you lose, and then you think, well, geez, I'm actually quite happy that I'm limited by that bookmaker. A little bit like the same thing. But let's introduce the next guest at the bottom of the screen there. He's at UK Rugby Bets on Twitter, and it's Alex. Alex, welcome to the show, your debut. Good to have you on.
Thanks, Brent. Very glad to be joining everyone this evening. So, I've been following this show for the last 6 months or so from afar over in London. We're in Surrey, just outside London. So I thought I'd bring a bit of a European opinion to the group. The South Africans have been dominating the show for so long, so I thought I'd give a European view for a change.
Excellent. Well, always good to have Europeans. In fact, we do have the occasional one on. And just interesting setup you got there. You got your TV there. And is that a bicycle I see in the background? I mean,
yeah, it is.
Training for anything with Tour de France?
Yeah, I'm training. I'm currently in training Tour de France. Maybe in a couple of years' time, I'll be ready to go. But right now, I can only manage about 30 minutes on my Peloton spin bike. Not an ad. But yeah, I'm a Peloton fan in my spare time.
Excellent. Well, the Crow Tips joining us. He has been one of the guys who's been holding his form on Twitter quite nicely. We'll have him on the show again soon. And then Mike coming up with a comment here. Mike, he said, are we going to have better rugby predictions this time around? Well, all we can say, Mike, is we certainly hope so. Last week was one of those weeks where, thankfully, I didn't get my newsletter out. Although, funny enough, I think I would have gone Waratah's overs points. So I think I might have hit that. But it would have been the only thing I hit the whole weekend. It was just one of those. But, gents, let's get into the action. And we'll look at a bit of Super Rugby Trans-Tasman. Now, of course, the log is very interesting here because you've got a situation where, in theory, all 5 New Zealand sides could make the final. In reality, only 3 of them could make the final unless there's some really shock results. You've got the Blues with their destiny totally in their own hands. Then you've got the Highlanders and the Crusaders both on the same amount of points. And the Highlanders actually have a slightly superior points difference. And we'll talk about that as we get into the matches. But the first one I can tell you, Gavin Cohen, is an absolute dead rubber. It's the Hurricanes up against the Reds. I've seen 12.5, 13.5 points on this one. And as I wrote in my Good for the Game preview, I just couldn't bring myself to pull the trigger on the Reds plus, although if you put a gun to my head, that's where I'm leaning.
Yeah, Brent, I just want to say something about our man down at the bottom of the screen here from England. I think he's the first Englishman that's been tipping us from England. We've had Frenchies and Italians and all sorts of other things. So we've got a real live Englishman, which is, I'm very impressed. And I said to him just off air before we came on, it looks like a professional setup, like he's, I don't know, just ready for any sort of broadcast. Yeah, Brent, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I've got no interest in dead rubbers. I don't even care if 75% of one team needs to win a game. They can win without my money. Honestly, you're probably right with your Reds plus, but for me, as little money as I've got, this game can honestly play without my money. I've got no interest in a dead rubber, not interested, got nothing to say about it.
Right, well, very firm opinion from Gavin on that first game, and he's firmly not going to have a bet. Alex, when I bring you in here, I can tell you the points lines are out, and we've got 57.5 total points. Now, I was leaning towards an overs play because I just think both these teams are going to throw everything at it. Tackling is going to be optional. But the one worry I do have is I know sometimes the wind blows in Wellington. I need to have a good look at the sort of weather there. But anything catch your eye in this game?
I had a look at the weather, actually, Brent. It didn't look, from a rain perspective, it looks like it's going to be pretty dry down in Wellington. So that's a good sign on the points side of things. The Reds, I do have to agree from a kind of dead rubber perspective, it is a tough one to get truly involved in. The Reds without James O'Connor is just a different side completely. They just look to Paisami to try and punch their way through and break that line, and they've really struggled at times last week. Hegarty's playing at 10 this week, which is a plus, I think. No James O'Connor, but slightly better. I was impressed with the youngster who played at fullback last week and goes again this week. McGreely, I think his name is, but he's still a kid, and there's a lot of players missing in that back line that I would prefer to be starting. If I was really going to go on that plus 12.5, 13.5. I think the Canes will win this. I don't think the Reds are going to do too much damage. My play on this one, if I was going to go, and I think I would go as a double with something else, would be at a slightly shorter handicap on the Canes, more around the 7.5 line with something else. But yeah, it's a tough one when there's nothing really on it for either side. I think they will throw the ball around, but I think in that game the Hurricanes have the edge there, so I'd go with a lower handicap on the Hurricane side.
Right. Well, I know a lot of the other guys. Els Pixer came on last week, and Chris Rowe as well. Also enjoys those sort of doubles and trebles where you take the lower handicap there. Brady popping on and saying, I heard Frenchy, so he just had to pop onto the show. So I'm sure Gavin will type him something in French now as well. Guys, I'll give you a bet in this game then. I agree with you fully. It's just not a game I can get too involved in. And what I'm going to go for, and I went for it in the Good for the Game preview, is it Amua, the Hurricanes hooker? I didn't read Couch Critics preview, but I'm certain he's going to tip this in his preview for Bet Olymp as well. And I'm going for him to score the first try at 12-1. He's an absolute beast. He can score from the back of the maul, but he can also give him the ball 10 or 15 meters out, and he can run through an entire team to score. So that's my interest bet, the 12-10 there. I might have a look at him any time as well, but I don't think he'll get a very big price. I'll look at that during the course of the show. Yeah, good to welcome all the boys in the live chat. Henrik Swart there. Good to have you on, Henrik. Let's hope for a strong weekend. We got Brady, Peter Paul, and then Sean Nicholas saying he's still in the ambulance from last week. Sean, you and I both, mate. We're both sitting in the ambulance there, but we're going to come back strong this week, I can tell you. Let's move on to the second game, and I'm going to go to Alex straight away on this one. Brumbies against the Highlanders. Now, Alex, this isn't a dead rubber because the Highlanders, who are 7.5-point favourites here, they need to beat the Brumbies. And realistically, they need to beat them with a bonus point, and they need to beat them by as far as possible. Now, if they were playing the Force or the Rebels, you would certainly say that they got every chance of doing that. But the Brumbies did beat the Hurricanes last week, and if they play to their best, they're, along with the Reds, the top Australian side. 7.5 points. The handicap looks fairly well set, in my opinion.
I agree with that, Brent, in terms of the handicap. I'd say rather than the Brumbies won last week, the Canes gave them the game. Two Geordie Barrett kicks should have been slotted. Most games, Geordie will slot those. I don't know what was up with him last week, but it cost them the game. But yeah, it's going to be a good game, I think, in terms of from a neutral perspective on Friday. I think the Brumbies have a couple changes. I think Lola Sia's not playing at 10, which is interesting, cool. But they have a lot of their kind of key players that are starting. Aaron Smith's back for the Highlanders, which is huge for them. He's so influential and he just runs the game for them. So Hamilton drops to the bench this week, which is just a big plus for them. For me on this game, I think the handicap's probably set about right. I actually think if I was going to go big here, I think it would be more in the Highlanders minus the 7.5. I think the Brumbies, with the Highlanders really wanting to push for that final spot, Brumbies not having too much to play with apart from some pride and playing at home, probably the last time I think this season in front of the home fans. I think they want to put out a show, but I think Aaron Smith and the Landers will really want to put down a statement They're going for a bonus point try. And I probably will have a look at more around a minus 10, 11 for a slightly extended handicap and see if I can get a bit of extra value there. But I won't be ploughing in just to see if I can get a bit of extra value. But I think the handicap's probably set back where I would have it. But I think the Highlanders will get the job done. I don't know whether they'll get a bonus point, 5 tries to 2, something like that seems. I think the Brumbies may score a couple, but I can't see the Highlanders scoring 6 at home in Canberra. So I would probably lean on a 10 handicap and see if I can get a bit of extra value there.
Right. Well, I can tell you, Gavin, before I bring you in, I'm going Highlanders total points over 30.5. Yeah, I'm like you. I'm actually leaning towards the Highlanders. I think this is one of those games where you could look back afterwards and, if the Highlanders realize they're not going to get the bonus point win, the heads could drop and the Brumbies could win the game. And there are a lot of guys in the live chat who've gone for the Brumbies to win. I suspect the Highlanders are going to do the job. They're bringing Aaron Smith back into the side now. And like Sean Nicholas, I think they're going to do the business. I like them on the minus, but I like them even more on the total points. Yes, last week's game was very low scoring in Canberra, but I almost got the feeling that all of these Australian sides, they want to step up for at least one game this season and show that Australian sides can play rugby. And I've got a feeling the Brumbies game was last time, and the Highlanders are going to come away with a nice win. I'm going Highlanders over 30.5. And just before I bring Gavin in, Johan Estays, and I see you there in the live chat, pop me an email. You are one of the winners of the 500 Rand vouchers to the Stokers Arms last week. So Brent at goodforthegame.co.za. You won that one, was with the first, I think you said the Bulls, you were the closest with the Bulls, and you almost hit the points as well. Gav, let's get your opinion on this one.
All right, so this is another one of these half-dead rubbers or whatever you want to call them. But I was very impressed with Alex and his prediction of 6-3. So I'm wondering if Alex is going to go over 2.5 Brumbies tries here, because he's not so much thinking about how many the Highlanders can get, but how many the Brumbies can get. Honestly, when I look at this log, and I've seen it, and you can look at it on an internet site on your screen, on your phone, or a tablet, or a laptop for that matter, and it's so much more glaring when you look at it on your 95-inch or 195-inch TV, whatever you've got at your house. When you see 5 New Zealand teams, about 5 Australian teams, it's got to be very depressing for those Australian teams. And you suggesting that they're going to come out and impress one week. I think they've tried to impress every single week, and they just haven't managed it. This is a dead rubber, and honestly, I'm not going to have a bet on this game, but I think you're 100% right, Alex, and Brent for that matter, and Henrik putting his comment on. I think this is a minus all the way, albeit seriously a unit or less if you really want to have a go. But I'm not going to touch this game. Aaron Smith playing very, very well, and I am one of those people, and I don't know all the players' names. I do know the scrum halves and the flower halves, and generally the captains and a couple of fullbacks and number 8s, but I don't know the players. Aaron Smith's playing very well at the moment. And, the Highlanders probably will win this tournament. If not, they'll be in the final as a losing finalist. But, minus for me if I'm going to have a bet, but I'm not going to.
Well, Gavin did promise me he wasn't going to lose any money on the show tonight. And by sitting out the first 2 games, he certainly stayed true to his word. Well done there. Well done there, Gav. Gav, let's bring you in on the early kickoff on Saturday. I think it's about 6:35 South African time. We've got the Rebels against the Crusaders. And let me paint the scenario for you here, Gav. The Crusaders are level, as I said, with the Highlanders. Depending on what the Highlanders do is going to determine the Crusaders' attitude to this match. So it might well be that the Crusaders need a bonus point if the Highlanders get one. And then they're really, I think, about 10 points down on the table. So whatever the Highlanders, let's assume the Highlanders get a bonus point against the Brumbies, the Crusaders have got to sort of add 10 or 12 points or something to that. So there's every chance they go out there needing a big victory. And here we got a handicap of 26.5 points. I capped this at 33.5 when I did my Sunday exercise on the forum. But I want to know where the Oracle money is going.
Again, another one of these dead rubbers. I think, you know what? You've got to take a multiple here. You've got to stick in the minus Crusaders, the minus Highlanders, and the Hurricanes in that first game. I don't know. If you're going to have a small little play, go for the 3 of them. There's no reason why the Crusaders can't win this game by 50. I find it very unlikely, even if they were playing pedestrian rugby on a dead rubber, that they'll win this game by 30. I think you're right. 30 is probably generous not generous enough from a Crusaders point of view, and probably a little bit over generous from a a Rebels point of view. Crusaders can win this game by 50. It's one of those games where the upside is higher than the downside. So if this game had to play, a lot of people ask me, how do you price up a game? You can do your hundreds, your 50s, your 20s, whatever it is. However many games there are, how many times would this team beat this handicap by? I'm going to say 19 out of 20 times the Crusaders beat this handicap. It's just one of those upside games, but, could go against you. It's a dead rubber. It's a half a dead rubber, whatever. This is just one of those weeks. I hate it. You get them in the year, and I know it sounds like I've got nothing to say to people, but the right thing to do here, and I'm going to say it, I said it last week and the week before, the minuses are the way to go for me if you're going to have a bet. Otherwise, there's no harm in not having a bet. Just watch the rugby. I don't know.
I must say one thing, Alex. You and I, let's clarify this. Gavin's definition of a dead rubber is different to mine, because for me, a dead rubber is when both sides have nothing to play for. Yeah, you've got one side that definitely will be having something to play for. So I'm not sure I would call this a dead rubber. And in fact, I'm looking at this, and early in the week,
I'm actually with you, Brent. I've been on the losing side of these half-dead rubbers. Really. As far as I'm concerned, honestly, if both teams do not need to win something, I call it a dead rubber. I call them half-dead rubbers, quarter, three-quarter dead rubbers, whatever. I've been on the losing side. I've been there. I've watched the movie. I know how it ends. Do not get massively involved in these games. When one team doesn't care, I promise you, they don't care.
Yeah, but that often opens up opportunity, Alex, because let's assume the Rebels don't care. And as I say, a lot's going to depend. I mean, if the Highlanders don't get a result against the Brumbies, the reality is the Crusaders, to win this game, they don't have to care. They just have to rock up. They're going to beat them. But if they've got some sort of target in mind, say they've got to beat them by 20, I think the Crusaders can beat whatever target they need to beat. That's my view. In other words, if you set the Crusaders out there, you said you've got to win this game by 60 points, I genuinely believe they would be able to do that if that was their mindset. And for me, Gavin said, more upside to the handicap on the Crusaders side than downside. And I agree 100%. I mean, the Crusaders were poor last week, but I haven't looked at if they've named their side yet. But I mean, I'm assuming the likes of, in fact, I'm looking here, Richie Mo'unga back. These boys mean business. They're going to come out steaming. And Alex, I'm going to probably, I'm hoping I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I'm going Crusaders minus I like, but I also like Crusaders on the halftime handicap, because I think these boys are going to want to get the job done and get it done early.
Yeah, I agree. I think the first 20 minutes in this game are huge. The Force did a really good job last week coming out of the box, and just the Crusaders didn't really know what hit them in the first 20 minutes. It took them a while to wake up. And actually that kind of, it took them a while to really kick in. And in the end, obviously, the last play of the game, they didn't see it out, lost their bonus point, and Jordan Oloafella scored in the corner and meant they didn't get their bonus point, which means they're having to work extra hard this week. I agree from a half-dead rubber perspective. It's interesting because sometimes for a lot of Australian sides, every week has been doesn't really matter. Let's just chuck the ball around and see what happens. And that I really noticed that with the Tars and the Rebels to a certain extent this season, is they just go around and chuck the ball around, try and score a few tries against the Kiwis. For me, I watched the Rebels last week and was impressed to some extent, more considering where they were earlier in the season. And obviously the benchmark is very low. They've gone from here to here. This youngster, fly half Gordon, they were, again, going from here to here. I have had a massive problem with Matt Tamura at 10 for a long, long time. Earlier in the season, the state of his passes and his game management has been so poor for a while now, and just dragged them into this slow, boring style of rugby. And seeing this kid Gordon last week take the ball to the line, the try assist that he provided to, I can't remember who it was brilliant. Broke the line, grabbed her through, collected it, and gave a great ball on the inside. So it's good to see them playing with a fly half who wants to play with a bit. Nice Sarani at 8 did a great job last week. Really was impressive. I saw them blow the Chiefs pack off their own ball in a 5-metre scrum and score. Haven't seen that for a long time from an Australian pack, so was impressed with that. So there were some positive signs from the Rebels last week. Is it enough to stop a Crusaders side needing a bonus point win at home? Definitely not. I'm agreeing with you entirely on the unders line here. The minus line for the Crusaders with Richie back. The Rebels have got a centre pairing which I wouldn't have expected. Callaway's playing at 13, who never really plays that, and actually another guy who I don't know who's playing at 12. So some yeah. So I'm not sure. I haven't seen him play much before. So it's a mismatch there. So I mean, Havili and Braden Ennor are going to have an absolute field day, and with Richie pulling the strings, this definitely is a minus play for me as well. It won't be a huge play, but I definitely will have a go on the minus. They should do this fairly comfortably, I think. I think that first 20 minutes is key. If the Rebels can score early and try and frustrate them, it might be a long game to try and get back into it. But I do think the Crusaders will blow them out of the water early on and again run away with it. That they play anywhere near that as well as they did against the Reds that game. God, the Rebels are in for a long day.
No, I was looking at that as well. You know, the Crusaders, they're the sort of side, they don't turn it on every week anymore, but when they need to turn it on, and their big game this season, let's face it, was against the Reds in Brisbane there, where they were taking on sort of the top Australian side, and they absolutely destroyed them. I mean, the Reds got 28 points, but 3 of them were consolation tries at the end.
Yeah.
And as the Crow Tip said there, rest in peace, Rebels rugby there. So, yeah, we're on the Crusaders there, so no doubt about that one. I saw Brady saying anywhere around 45 points for Crusaders points line. He'll be hopping on as well. Alex, we'll stay with you. Move on to the next game. It's the Blues against the Western Force. I can tell you all 3 Saturday games are massive handicaps. Here we got minus 24.5, the Blues up against the Force. Now, the Blues very much have their fate in their own hands. Even if the Crusaders and Highlanders get bonus points, they can get a bonus point win and ensure they finish top of the table. And they're playing against a Force side that have come within 1 point of the Chiefs this season. I mean, let's face it, pushed the Crusaders closer than anyone thought last season. Can they beat the Force, the 24.5 point handicap here?
So I saw this handicap earlier on in the week, and I thought if the Force name a strong side, I would be on the plus. And for me, the biggest problem for that is there's no Cabelli and there's no Miotti at 10. They've changed their 9s and 10. So those two really run the show for them. And without them at McIntyre, I know Ian Pryor's got a big, I think it was maybe 50 or 100 caps, can't remember which one it is, but a big number this weekend. But they're just not the same, and it's just so pivotal for them. They did frustrate the Crusaders last week, and they are gritty. They are a gritty side that can stay in games. I think the Blues have obviously... The Blues are the Blues. They seem to have got the job done this season pretty comfortably, not really had too much to really work for it. A lot of the Australian sides have kind of gifted them a lot of tries pretty simply. I think if they got through to the final, I don't think they'd end up winning it, to be honest with you. I think the other Kiwi sides, whether it's the Landers or the Crusaders, would beat them. This is a strange one for me, and this is I'm not really comfortable taking a Blues unders line here personally. And I'm also not too happy taking the handicap line with the plus. I actually am tempted to play a small play on a slightly shorter plus on the Force, which is, I'm reluctantly saying that because there is no Cabelli and Miotti, but around 15.5 plus, I think, is about 3.5 on the odds, which I think if the Force can continue their gritty, hard-fought performances that they have shown of late, is a chance of that coming off. So that would be a small play for me, but I'm not really too interested in this game with other games that have caught my eye more than this one this weekend.
Right, Henrik Swart coming in and saying Blues physically going to be stronger, they're going to bully them. Henrik, I'm with you. I think the Blues are good things on the handicap there. I'll look for somewhere maybe about a 22.5. I think they're going to hammer this Force side. That is punched above their weight at times, but they're going to really struggle up front against the Blues. Gavin, let's get your views on this one.
I just want to ask Alex a question, and I'm asking it because you and I have both spoken along these lines before. Alex, you sounded very confident in that last game, not this Blues ones, the one before. You know, to give the punters a bit of a feel, how big a bet would you go in that previous game? I think it's the Crusaders one we're talking about, as opposed to others. Is that a 1-unit game, a 2-unit game? Is it a super max? Is it you sounded very confident and a bit worried because you started off saying you thought about the half dead rubber thing, and I ask this question because I'm always interested to know how guys attack games like this, because
Yeah.
I've been before. And as they say, well, I actually can't remember something about the fire, twice you learn or whatever it is. But yeah. I've been bent on these half dead rubbers and dead rubber games. And honestly, I just can't throw money at them. As much as it feels like in this game now, the Blues will absolutely smash them. They probably will. It's one of those games where I say, you know what? I'd rather watch the result or see the result afterwards and say, well, I was right, and I had a small bet, like a quarter unit or maybe a unit, but no sort of 3 or 4 or 5s or anything like that.
We're on a very similar page here. I think towards the end of the season, when there is, it really depends on the interest, and it does make a big difference. I think I tend to do bigger units in the middle of the season where I'm more confident on positions and teams, and that's the biggest thing. Is some of these teams are not putting out their strongest sides, and you'll have a lot of youngsters come off the bench, and you've got people making debuts, and it makes a big impact. In terms of I'm not going to be betting as big, but I will have a unit or two on that Crusaders minus play. But it's not the same at this time of the season, unless I'm thinking this is a huge mess up by the bookies.
Okay.
Right,
So for me, you know what I'm going to say, Brent? I'm going to say take all the 4 New Zealand minuses here and stick 1 unit on, and you'll probably get anything between 10 and 14 to 1, depending on the price that the bookmaker that you're having a bet. Have a small 10 to 14 to 1 multiple, stick a unit on it, watch the games, and wait for that Bulls Sharks game that actually means something this weekend.
So, Alex, just a question in clarity, and you don't have to talk. I always say there's very little point talking rands or pounds and that, because you could be a millionaire, and if you're betting £100, it's nothing to you. But on the other hand, for a guy who earns like £10 a week, £100 is like a massive bet. But if you had to call in units or points, I mean, what would be your max bet? Let's just say you absolutely loved something. What do you bet? Do you say 10 units is your max bet, 5 units? What sort of scale would you bet?
So I bet on when I post my bets on Twitter. I use points as a structure, and so the points are a structure of my bank balance. I tend to bet 1 to max 3 points.
Okay.
So it's very rare that I'll go above that.
But I mean, if 3 is your max bet, then if you say like a 2-point bet, that's a fairly confident bet. Whereas if I say
Crusaders
unit
this weekend, I'll be on a 2 points bet. I units points, I call it's the same thing.
No, same thing exactly. But but
exactly.
that's point. You going on a 1 to 3 scale. So if you say this is a 2-point bet,
yes,
it's pretty common. Whereas for me, if I say it's a 2-unit bet, I'm working on a 1 to 10 scale. I'm talking speculate. So it's good. Thanks for the question there, Brady. Good to clarify that. Joey Wallace also joining us. He's got me out of jail with a couple of picks on the Good for the Game forum in Europe. I must tell you, Brumbies a plus, but not too confident there on that one. So, I quite like the Blues, but we got the last game, the Waratahs against the Chiefs. And, Gav, we'll start with you on this one. And this one, Gavin, is a dead rubber. Well, at least it's not a dead rubber officially now. It's actually not a dead rubber, but I can promise you by the time it kicks off, it will be a dead rubber. You're going to have your say on this one.
Take the minus Chiefs and add it to that and make it 22 to 1. No, but it's interesting, Brent. And, when I started with you guys, tipping, on the Good for the Game on my YouTube channel, I have the 5-point scale. And I sort of sense a few ripples around there because you guys have been working on a 10-point scale, and I'm impressed to see Alex is on a 3-point scale. So it's almost like one of those. We need a forex board showing
consistency.
Alex's 2 points on your 2 points and what my 2 points means. So it is very interesting, and that's the mindset of everyone. And you're right, it has nothing to do with the rand value because. A guy could stick 5,000 rand in a game. Another guy puts 200 rand on, and you say, well, who's more confident? People say, well, the guy with 5,000. And I'll tell you, he's a 20,000 rand punter. He's having a quarter bet. The 200 rand guy's a 20 rand punter. He's having 10 times more. So it's got nothing to do with the actual rand value, pound value, dollar value, whatever it is. It's all about your confidence level. So, honestly, just take all 5 minuses here. I can't say it anymore. You go and look at the log. The top 5 teams are the New Zealand teams. I think it's going to be like that for the next few years until they involve somebody else. And it's just one-way traffic. Those Australians are going to get more demotivated and more demotivated and more demotivated. It's no good. This is not good for world rugby. What's going on in this tournament is no good.
especially if they watch this show. They certainly won't have no very high levels of motivation. Let's go Waratahs. Let's talk Waratahs Chiefs quickly, Alex. Now, I must tell you, one bet that's arrived for the Waratahs in all 4 of their games is Waratahs overs points. Now, we don't have it yet, but the Waratahs play a game where, very much it's like they'll score a lot of tries, but they, on the other hand, they're pretty weak defensively. But that does normally give them a good chance in these big handicap games. And here I see 21.5. I'm leaning Waratahs, but I must tell you straight out, I'm waiting for the points line here. And if I can get anything Waratahs at home, 22.5, 23.5, I'll be hopping on their points because I think this is going to be a wild and open game.
Yeah, 100% agree with that, Brent. I've been very much on the plus and points for Waratahs this season, which is I've done pretty well. Apart from last week, I was convinced they were going to get the plus against the Highlanders, but run out of steam. Their squad is dwindling fast. That's the only problem. They are pulling people anywhere they can out of that shoot shield competition. They are looking for bodies right now. They are down to their bare bones. No Jack Maddox this week. No Tizano. So Harrison's playing 10 again, who's been playing at 15 for a while, and I thought he got a bit more confidence back because he was not great at 10 earlier in the season, but he was pretty good last week. I thought he went okay. No, Jake Gordon at 9 is a big loss for them. He was really been their go-getter this year. He ran the game for the Tars and really brought that energy and ball speed when they could attack, because when they did in full flow, they do play good ball in hand rugby and they do look for opportunities. And with Parise breaking the line and Maddox out wide and Newsom, they are a threat and do score tries. So I agree. I've been looking at similar sort of play. If they can get around the 22, 23 point mark, I'll also have a point probably on that. But the hesitancy there is that their squad really is struggling and they won't last a full 80 minutes. Last week, they didn't score a point in the second half, and that was their biggest problem last week. They really are running out of steam. That's where they can
I do remember that quite well because I was at halftime. I took Tars over 30.5 points, and I can confirm they didn't score a point there. Brady just come in and making sort of reiterating what you said there, is that Tars are missing a few players, so just trade carefully around them, and I think that's a good point. So your final bet then on this game would be?
I'd probably have, if I can get around 20, between 21, 22 points. I think it'll be lower because of the fact they have a lower squad. If you can get around 20, 21 points, I'd have a point on the overs because they will chuck it around. They'll go for it. There's nothing to lose. But because of that squad, I wouldn't go more than that, and it'll be a small bet, 1 point bet.
And Henrik Swat says Gavin's TV's on the same channel as mine. You're watching the cricket, Gav?
If there's a series that I enjoy, it's this nighttime cricket, or nighttime for us. It's West Indian cricket's great, but when I saw the West Indies go out for just under 100, I thought this is a dodgy wicket. And I remember that test match with that he was a Rhodesian wicketkeeper, played for England a couple of times. They actually stopped the test match because the ground was so bad. I mean, Heinrich Nokia was bowling earlier, 3 very identical balls going at least 30 centimeters or a foot apart from each other each way, 3 levels down. That pitch is in bad shape. I wouldn't be surprised if this match is finished by lunchtime on day 3. And in saying that, I have no idea who's going to win. But South Africa look very dominant right now. But honestly, on a bad pitch, anybody can win. Loving this cricket.
All right, enjoying the cricket. Let's move on to Rainbow Cup, because I think this is our record for terms of talking for the Trans-Tasman. We're well over half an hour already. Not that we're in a rush or anything, but let's get on to the Rainbow Cup. And Gav, we'll start with you with the Rainbow Cup. And the first game, let me just see which one we'll cover. I think it's the let's call it the dead rubber game in the Rainbow Cup. It's the Stormers against the Lions. And here we got Stormers minus 8.5 against the Lions. And both teams, I can tell you, Gav, quite a few changes. Stormers resting a few players. Lions have got a couple of injuries. It's a tough game to call.
It is a tough game to call. Excuse me, Brent. I'm not going to tell you the Lions are going to win this game. They can win it, obviously, but I just don't see it. They were so ridiculously poor last week. I think everybody and his brother, the dog, the uncle, the neighbour, everybody was on the Lions. I think the bookmakers have got so much money right now after last weekend in their rugby coffers. They don't even care which way we go. That Lions game absolutely murdered everybody. I got a lot of abuse from people I know because I'm a Lions supporter, but it had nothing to do with that. I was really confident. It is a dead rubber, but I do think that if you're going to, there you go, let's take your 22 to 1, 24 to 1 New Zealand minus and chuck in the Stormers on the board at 3-10. You'll probably bounce it up to about 28-1 or 30-1. I wouldn't touch the Lions to win this game. Their season's over. It's Curry Cup. They're thinking about next week. This tournament's gone for them. Tournament's gone for the Stormers, but they'll probably win the game.
Yeah, I think the Stormers will win this game, and I actually fancy that this will be a high-scoring game. I haven't checked the weather yet in Cape Town, so that's obviously the disclaimer. But I think we're going to get both sides throwing it around, and I think we could get quite a few points in this one. Alex, you got any views on the Rainbow Cup SA?
I don't think I'm going to have a huge bet on this game. I think the Stormers will win this as well. The only thing I'll have a look at, I haven't seen any player markets yet, is I'm a massive fan of him. Watching Ed Will van der Merwe just absolutely tear it up on that left wing for the Stormers. That guy is unbelievable. Bit of obviously the obvious comparison is to Cheslin Colby, and there are a lot of similarities, but some of the work off the ball he was putting in last week was phenomenal. A couple of upper unders, he was timing his jumps so well. He's not just a guy with quick feet and gets on the end of tries. He puts the graft in around the pitch. I'm really impressed with him. So I'll have a little look. I've had a little look recently with him on those anytime scorer marks and done it right. So I'll have a look at him on the first scorer, see if I can get some value there. But yeah, I won't really be doing too much on this game. Maybe have a look at Ed Will. But other than that, nothing from me.
The try scorer is always a nice interest to have if you're not too involved in the game. I'm probably not going to get involved in the handicap. I will be looking at points in this one. I'll post any picks on the Good for the Game forum. Let's stay with you, Alex. So the Sharks against the Bulls. Now this game's not a dead rubber in the sense that the Sharks can win with a bonus point and can stop the Bulls getting a bonus point, and they can make the final in Italy. But let's face it, their chances of doing all of those things are quite tough, especially in this competition where the bonus point is achieved at 4 tries. It's not the difference, the three try difference, which I must say I've grown to much prefer. But here we've got a situation, we've got the Sharks at home. They're slight underdogs against the Bulls, sort of plus 1.5. You can get a shop around. I saw some 9-10 the Bulls at World Sports Betting. What are your views on this one?
I'm sure Gav will probably give you a better explanation of this game than I will. But just from what I've seen of these teams this year, that Bulls pack with Mornay behind it in this sort of game, which has essentially come down to test match business end of the season rugby, I think they'll get the job done on the day. So for me, I'll be looking at I haven't looked at the prices yet, but I'd be looking to take a slightly longer minus play on the Bulls here. I just think in this sort of rugby, and they've got a decent bench. I think they've got a couple of good players come off the bench in the end of the game, which will make a difference. But obviously, without Vermeulen is a loss for the Bulls, but there's a lot of power in that pack, and I really think they'll get the job done. And with Mornay behind them, and they've obviously got some good players that wide. But I think they'll get the job done, and I'd look at a slightly longer play for a minus, but won't be doing too much, maybe a point.
Yeah, interesting to note as well that the Sharks have named their 15, but they haven't named their bench yet because they've got quite a few injury problems as well. The Bulls have played a bit of they've experimented throughout the whole season. I think the Bulls are also going to want to, I think they're going to want to stamp their authority on this tournament. Also probably a little bit unhappy they've got so few Springboks. And I think they're going to come out and get the job done. I agree with you on Mornay. I think Gavin's going to agree with you on Mornay staying as well, because I know he changed his opinion the other day when Mornay didn't play. And in fact, I'm going to say here that the Bulls, but I'm going to go with the Bulls on the half-time here. I think you can get, obviously it's a very much a level game. I see you on Sunday, Bulls minus 1.5 at 19-20. I'll probably just take the Bulls outright at about 15 to 28 to 10, just to lead at half-time. Gav, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, so I looked at this tournament, Brent. In fact, when the tournament started and they were going to play just the 6 games each, I thought, well, we probably won't even get to a game like this. And I'm very impressed that we did. I then look at things like how I've called the teams. The Sharks, excuse me, I called them to beat that Western Province team the first up. Yes, there were a couple of cards, but we'll ignore that for now. I called them right in the Bulls game. I did call them wrong when they played the Lions. I've done okay with the Sharks team. I've made more money on the Sharks, calling the Sharks right in this tournament than I have the Bulls. In fact, I fell short on 2 occasions of the Bulls where it's been very close and I haven't won. And then I went for the Lions and that plus against the Bulls. So I haven't read the Bulls quite right yet. I'm going to tell you that they got the wrong favourite here. I think that this Bulls team think they've won this tournament already. Mornay Steyn is fantastic. I've said it and I've said it again and I'll say it again. I think he's going to have a reasonably decent game, but they've bombed this Sharks player, this number 10. I forget his name now, but anyway, I read stories he's going to the Stormers or he's going overseas. Bosch, that guy, the same one that they
Bosch,
named
yes.
the batteries after. The Bosch, the battery guy. I'm seriously, this for me, Sharks will win this game. And just correct me if I'm wrong here. They need to beat the Bulls. They need to get the bonus point, and they need to beat the Bulls by 8. And they're going
you're
to.
right. But they've got to stop the Bulls getting 4 tries as well, because if the Bulls get the bonus point, the Bulls have got, I think, quite a far superior points difference. So they've got to win by 8 and get the bonus point, but the Bulls are only allowed to score 3 tries. So it's going to be an interesting one.
How often do we see 7 tries in Durban? We don't see 7 tries in Durban very often. I think the Sharks will get their 4 tries, and I think they'll beat this Bulls team by more than 8 points. This is a game that I'm going to have, and I'll tell people, never mind my multiple I've given you earlier, the 30-1 shot with the Stormers and the 5 New Zealand minuses. If you're going to have one bet this weekend, take the Sharks. The Sharks will win this game.
Right, well, I'm going to give you a little opportunity here, Gav, because as you know, you owe me some bucks now for the last couple of weeks. Things haven't gone well. You got me into the big bet last week, even though I actually thought I was going to regret it. So we don't have to go big. We can stay small here, but I like the Bulls. I think the Bulls are going to win this one comfortably. Do you want to have a little wager on this one?
Yeah, it's fine. We can do even money on the game. Draw no bet. No problem.
Okay, even 500. Should we keep it small?
Happy with that.
Happy with that. Okay, I've got the Bulls there. I think the Bulls are going to win this one comfortably. Right, that brings us to the end of the Rainbow Cup. Gav, I know you're going to stay on because we're going to run through a little bit.
Sorry. So I've been hearing about the Benetton team. So who are the Sharks playing? I mean, I haven't actually looked at the Northern Hemisphere side of this draw. Is there
it's a joke.
Who are the Sharks playing next week or the week after?
It's only on the 19th, and I love the confidence in the Sharks there, Alex. But at this stage, I think Benetton, I think, are second on the logbook with a game in hand or something like that.
Benetton are in the final. Benetton
in the final. Oh, he said, I didn't realize that. Okay.
It's done. They're because of a game called off. I think it's done. They get gifted 4 points. So they've actually. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure they played maybe they're supposed to play 5 games. They played the other Italian team twice, Zebra, and they played I think the Ospreys, and they managed to get enough points to somehow be on the top of the pile. So they've snuck their way into the final. So they're already there, as far as I'm aware.
Okay, interesting. I didn't realize that. So that's who they're playing, Gav. It's going to be the Italian team, and the game is taking place in Italy. But interesting, though, that none of the box are going to go over. I did see an article on that today.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't think that's an issue. And in fact, I completely understand that. This is probably, well, you know what? It's one of these kind of tournaments that you win. When they win, they're going to bring a little medal home to Durban, and they'll put it on the board, and no one will recognize it in 15 years' time because it's a once-off tournament that'll never happen again. And, yeah, it'll just be their personal memento. But, Sharks will win. They'll win in Italy against whoever they play, and they'll come back over here. And I'm happy the box aren't going because we're going to smash those British and Irish Lions. 3-love, race over, put the result in, pay the punters. It's over.
I'm just thinking of some person who's tuning in late to the show and hearing the Sharks being spoken about like guaranteed finalists already. But anyway, can't wait for the Lions. We'll probably have a lot of shows during the Lions tour. Definitely going to run a big buy-in Super Brew competition as well. So look out for that one. And on that note, if you enter your Euro 2020, we do have a Super Brew competition. Look out for the Good for the Game pool there. It's free to play, and we've got a few betting vouchers up there from World Sports Betting. But let's run through the Gallagher Premiership now, Alex. We've got a few games that I've got priced up here. I don't know if all of them are covered, but I'll run through. I know that in the European games, often team news is a big factor, and at this stage, you don't normally have team news beyond the Friday games. But I'll run through the game, and you could just tell me you fancy anything. If you don't fancy anything, we'll move on. Bath against the Northampton Saints, and here we got Bath minus 9.5.
So yeah, Bath are one of these sides. I think there's 4 sides that can get into this top 8 in the Premiership this season that will qualify for the Champions Cup, which obviously is from their point of view is the big competition in Europe. They all want to be in it from both a rights money perspective and obviously playing against the best teams in Europe. So they're all going for this top 8 spot. So Bath Newcastle, Wasps, and London Irish can all get in there this week. So there is a lot to play for this weekend. Bath had a game off that was cancelled last week, so they will be rested. And you're absolutely right. No team news, but I guarantee you, Bath will be playing their strongest squad. So this week, I'm going to definitely be playing on Bath. I think you can get them around 1.4. So I'm putting them in with a multiple or double with Quins on the minus 6.5 ish. So Quins are at home to Newcastle, who also none of these sides can get in. But Quins plus, I'm going straight ahead to the next game here. Sorry, Brent.
That's fine. That's fine. Same handicap though. So yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So Harlequins are at home to Newcastle this week, and Quins, if anyone watched it last week, got absolutely smashed by Sale Sharks, who are on absolutely flying at the moment. But they played their B team effectively, the lowly youngsters. A couple of regulars, Tyrone Green and Marchant, were still playing, but mostly it was kids. They basically decided to rest their squad for this week, and for the playoffs, they already had that playoff spot confirmed. So they decided to rest everyone last week. So Danny Kerr, their scrum half, did mention on the podcast this week, whether it's the truth or not, they are playing their full squad team. So whether that's true or not, we'll have to see. But I'm definitely playing on the minus here for Quins. I'm taking a slightly shorter one and putting it with a multiple with Bath the win. That'll be a 2-point bet for me as well. I'm pretty confident with that one.
What price will you get there? What you're going to get about what?
Just over evens on those two. But I'm expecting Quins to absolutely blow them away, to be honest with you. And I'll have a look at their points, but they should be scoring 40-plus points. It's currently scorching here in the UK, and for scorching for us for here is about 20-25 degrees. But on a dry track day, Harlequin should absolutely thump this Newcastle Falcons side, and they've been scoring 50 points very easily all season. With Marcus Smith and Danny Kerr running the show, they should absolutely blow this Newcastle Falcons team out of the water.
The Crow Trips agreeing with you there, and just welcome to Shane from Ireland. He's giving him, and I know he's always been a good follower of the show, and he particularly enjoys it when Oracle's putting Granny's pension money down. So Shane, good to see you there. Brady coming up with another punt, which I'll bring up now when we talk about the game. Wasps up against the Leicester Tigers. Sorry, Gav.
I've sent Granny a couple of WhatsApps. She's not replying at the moment. I'm expecting a reply late next week for the Lions tour. So yeah, she's made a few withdrawals, ready to go. We're going to fire when the Lions get you.
I think this is the first man to ever have his WhatsApp blocked by his own granny. I reckon she doesn't want to hear a word from you. Shane, also, you've got fans. We'll talk a little bit about the Pro 14 games now as well, or the Pro 14 section of the Rainbow Cup. But great to have the fans start to come back into the stadiums. Alex, next game, Wasps up against the Leicester Tigers. And here we got the Wasps minus 2.5 now. Without knowing anything, I'm saying this game screams high on total points to me the way these sides play.
Definitely. These sides, Wasps especially, just play very expansive rugby. Tigers do on their day, but obviously have a very strong pack up front and will use their physical dominance to really make their mark on their game. Don't know if anyone watched the game last week, Leicester Tigers against Bristol, but there was a very entertaining last 5 minutes of chaos and a 30-man brawl ending in the game, which was very entertaining for a neutral fan. A whole drama over the rule of whether someone's an injured sub or a tactical substitution, causing mayhem on the touchline.
I missed that, but I saw on Twitter there was a big blow up about that. So thanks for. I meant to go and have a look.
Have a little look at that. It's worth a watch. It's a good little 5 minutes end of the game. But yeah, right. This is definitely an overs game for me. I haven't seen a points line yet. I don't know if you have, Brent. But
no, nothing out yet.
So we'll have to wait and see, and I'll post on Twitter if I think it's worth going for. But yeah, this is definitely an overs game, depending on that points line. But around the end of the season, with Wasps obviously have to go for it. They came back from a 20-odd points deficit at half-time last week and stole the game at the end of the game against London Irish. Were brilliant in that second half, but in the first half really didn't look up for it. When they feel like when they have to turn it on, Wasps do turn it on, and I think they probably will get a victory, but it depends on who Tigers play. They might want to they might want to give their youngsters a bit of a game with nothing really just to play for them. So this is really waiting on team news and points line.
Right, well, we got a fancy from Brady in this next game. Bristol Bears. I just love watching these guys play up against the London Irish, and we've got -8.5 the Bristol Bears. He does make the point he hasn't seen team news bet, but he says it's a juicy one.
Yeah, I agree with that. With Brady again. Also, caveat with the team news: Bristol are dying to finish first, top of the pile. They've been working for this for so long, going through the leagues, and they really, really, really want to finish top of the pile. You could see that last week in that last few minutes of the game. They already had their spot, but basically confirmed. But they really wanted to win that game. So it'll depend on who they play this week. And London Irish have a lot at stake. They can get in that top 8, and so they will be playing their strongest side. They are dangerous at times, London Irish, but they really do lack their consistency. And their heads just went after that second half. And when they lost that first, when Wasps scored earlier second half, it was always going to go Wasps' way. Their heads went down, and they lack a bit of direction. Jackson doesn't always have that cool head on him, and he really didn't steer them that second half very well. So yeah, Bristol, I think, depending on that team news, should very easily, very, very easily, comfortably take that points line. And so I'd also have a look at Bristol over tries line. They should be scoring a fair amount of tries against a London Irish side that will also try and throw the ball around and are suspect defensively.
Yeah, the conductor agreeing with you guys there as well, saying the -8.5. He reckons London Irish are tied. And yeah, conductor, I hope you're enjoying the show. No doubt sipping on a couple of cold ones or perhaps a bit of wine or brandy there. No doubt Hendrik's got his braai going in the background and having a brandy as well. Let's move on to the last game. Get Brady's comment first on that. London Irish has played the same starting 15 for a few months, so also lending themselves to the fact that they could be tired there. I've just got one more game priced up here, Alex, and Exeter. I think they're coming off a thumping victory. Well, did they put 70 points past the team last week, I saw? And they're playing up against Sale here, and -17.5 Exeter. Does this mean we're expecting Sale to perhaps play a bit of a second string side, or is it just that the Exeter Chiefs are that good?
So yeah, it was the week before they pumped Newcastle 70 points to 3, something ridiculous like that. It was an absolute walk. But last week they played Northampton Saints at Franklin Gardens and just crawled over the line.
Sure, but yes, they were down at half time. You're right. Yes, okay. They won by 3, I think.
Yeah, 29-26. The Saints' first half last week was the best half probably I've seen them play all season. Their physicality it's one of these games where it was essentially a half dead rubber, as I said earlier on, but they just got physically up for it, and they dominated an Exeter Chiefs side, which very rarely get physically dominated up front. They were brilliant in that first half, but the Chiefs came back and got the victory in the end. But this is a bit of the biggest dead rubber this weekend, because both these sides are already in the playoffs. They haven't rested players too much for a while, and I think they'll do it this weekend. They don't want to get injuries before the playoffs. This is a bit of a weird game for me. I'm not really interested in this one at all. With other games that are better for me this weekend. So I'm out of this game. I'm not really interested in it.
Right, I've just seen Shane bringing up that this is my chance to get the big double on France to win Euro, which I do fancy, I must tell you, and France to win the World Cup. And I can't believe that France price for the World Cup is now 72. I remember after the last World Cup, I wrote an article and said, every week put 50 Rand on France at 10-1 to win the World Cup. But of course, that didn't last very long. They're quite short. I'm not so sure there's value now in the 72. And Oracle Rugby, I see you shaking your head. You're not taking that double.
So my kid's a Paris Saint-Germain fan, wears the shirt every weekend, loves them, knows everything about French rugby, soccer, says they should win this tournament. They're massive favourites. They've got the right team. Everything's working for them. But I'm going to turn on the rugby screw here and say every time there's a World Cup in France, South Africa win the World Cup. So don't waste your money.
Brilliant, Gab. Brilliant. Yeah, that's 100% true. And,
but honestly, let's think about it. When else has a team been shorter than 4-1 or 7-2 for that matter? That doesn't happen unless it's New Zealand. I mean, I know England in the 2015 World Cup were reasonably short, but I don't think they were that short. I think it's quite short. Honestly, I think
too short for me.
at starting gate race time, when the tournament starts, you'll probably get 5-1 or 11-2 France. You're not going to seriously 7-2, 4-1 with a year or a couple of years to go for that matter. I wouldn't touch it. Honestly, way too short.
Yeah, so
I'm looking for a price for France to beat the Wallabies 3-0 this summer. That's what I'm waiting for. But
there you go.
Really?
Put that 3-0 onto the South African 3-0, and now we're talking.
Yeah, I'm sure, Alex, you got a different opinion on the Lions than Gavin, eh?
You're in England at the moment. What's the banter around the the pubs or the the clubs or just your friends, the newspapers, whatever? What are they talking about this Lions tour? Does everybody think they're coming to South Africa winning 3-0, or do they think it's going to be tough? What is the general banter?
Yeah, it's very much a tough series. I think to start with, it was very much people were thinking actually before the squad was announced that we would win comfortably. I think people have played a lot on the fact that the Springboks haven't played for so long, and I think someone mentioned it last week. I can't remember who it was now, but Luke made a very good point that a lot of that Springbok side are playing serious Test match rugby instead of playing in Europe. And I do consider the closest things to Test match rugby in world rugby is the Champions Cup, and especially the knockout phases games. So I do think that Springbok side aren't really going to be phased too much. I know they got a warm-up game against the Georgians, but that's not an issue for me. For me, I do think the Lions are going to edge it. I think it'll be 2-1. I think the Springboks are going to win the first game, and then the Lions are going to come back. There was a lot of raised eyebrows at a lot of the squad Lions side, including myself. There's a lot of players I didn't think were going to get in that did, and also missed the cut. But I am happy with the Lions squad. I think there's a good balance in the squad, and you can really see this type of rugby that the Lions are going to play, and I'm very excited to see how we'll go in that first test. But I do think it'll be 2-1 to the Lions, and I think the Springboks win the first test.
Well, I can see us setting up a match
to say, Brett, and Alex, for that matter, guys saying that the Springboks haven't played much recently. I'm going to tell you a small statistic here, and I know you're both going to laugh when you hear this, but actually the Springboks played the most recent game if you compare the Springboks to the British and Irish Lions. They played 4 years ago.
Very good, very good. I just want to point out that, Gavin and I like to have our little match bets, our little bets on the program, but I think I'm going to have Brady on with Alex, because Alex is tipping France 3-0 and Brady's tipping Australia 3-0. They both stay in the UK. So I think we could have a £500 bet on this one instead of a 500.
I think Brady might have heard that the French have been talking about not sending their main squad down to start with. But,
that's immediately thing with.
That's why I think there's going to be a huge price on France to get a big.
And
win.
You still want it even with their second string.
I think it'll be a really big price. I do think
every week
that if you do, I think in the Six Nations, the French squad brought their second team to Twickenham and nearly did a job on the English.
But also Australia
so much
by New Zealanders every week. They're going to be done. Over.
I'll wait to see some prices, but I'm definitely keeping an eye out.
Well, Brady certainly got no problem with that. He says £500 is a deal. Alex is not committing to that, Brady. He's definitely not committing to that. The boys are talking about a bit of top 14
New Zealand
playing
this break now? Who does New Zealand play? If France are playing Australia, we playing the British and Irish Lions.
They've got some Pacific games lined up. I think they might do.
I'm sure someone will tell us in the live chat if it may be Scotland or Wales. What's happening to them in this?
Well, most of them. Well, I know the Scotland team's not that line.
I think it might be some of the Pacific Islanders. I think I might be wrong.
Fiji, Brady says they're playing Fiji there. So it's going to be interesting. But I'm just looking forward to international rugby. I can't wait for it again, especially the sort of North v South again. I mean, we've watched a lot of Autumn Nations Cup and Six Nations, and it's been great, make no mistake. But it's just something about the fact that, the Lions coming here and France going to be in Australia, whatever. It's really going to be great. Alex, just to touch on a little bit of Rainbow Cup, I've got 3 games priced up here. I don't know how many are taking place this weekend. The first one quickly, Zebra against Munster, plus 18.5 for home team.
I haven't really looked at any of the other games in the Rainbow Cup, to be honest, Brent. My focus this weekend is on the other games in in England and down.
Yeah, I could hear you got some confidence in those English games. No.
But,
Problem.
no,
Look,
so
the
to be
Rainbow
honest,
Cup, we
I'm
haven't
going to
been
be leaving
focusing
those.
on it much. Okay, cool. Well, let's get into the best bets. I'll just run through. Let me just run through the betting there. If anyone fancies anything in the live chat, they can mention. We've got Zebra plus 18.5 against Munster. Leinster minus 28.5 against the Dragons. And as Shane said, there'll be a few spectators allowed back into that one. I'm not sure if Jules is watching the show. If he catches the recording, his team, the Dragons, they led Leinster in the game earlier in the season at half-time, if I'm not mistaken, but eventually lost. And we got the Scarlets minus 5.5 against Edinburgh. But that brings us, gentlemen, to the part of the show which is I'm always listening to rather tentatively, hoping for a bit of inspiration, and that is the best bets. Alex, we'll start with you. Your best bet or bets for the weekend, please.
My best bet for the weekend is in the Northern Hemisphere in the Premiership. I'm definitely going to be backing Bath to win with a double with Quins at minus 6.5. Get just above evens most places. I'm very confident about this one. I think the Quins should blow Newcastle away, and Bath will bring their A game and will beat Saints, who I think will be tired after a battling performance against Exeter last week. So that is my best bet of the weekend.
Right, Gav, your best bet. You weren't confident early, but I sensed your confidence growing as the show carried on. Yeah, I'm thinking you're going Sharks.
Look, for me, it's not even a best bet. It's the only bet. It's the Sharks. It's a week full of dead rubbers. Unfortunately, Alex, while I respect your judgment on this English rugby, I don't follow it much. I will actually, now that I've met you and had a chat with you, I'll have a look and follow your results this weekend and maybe have see what's on TV and have a go. But you're in competition with this cricket going on at the moment and whatever else. But yeah, honestly, I'm going to have one bet this weekend. It's on the Sharks. I'm going to back the Sharks to beat the Bulls on the board. I think it's a great price. I think they got the wrong favourite. And honestly, if you really want to have a second bet, and I might do it myself, probably take a half a unit, take all the minuses in New Zealand, chuck it onto the Stormers, and if it wins, I'll go to Stakers and buy a few guys a beer, and that's it for me.
Sounds good. And we're looking forward to having old Stoneman on the show again soon. Shane just mentioned your music quizzes. It looks like he wants you to do another one. You did quite a few of them during lockdown, eh?
Yeah, I'll get there again, but I actually got blocked by YouTube and Facebook. They kept switching me off for the music ones. But Shane, I will get back to it. Just going back to your Euro 2020, I'm going to go with my kid. Yeah, I think France are good things to win this tournament. Well, not good things as in, a lot of money, but certainly the ones to follow. I know it's, all the games are in Italy. Looking at this weekend in particular, I like Switzerland to beat Wales. A decent price there. I think that Portugal and Belgium, from the favourites' point of view in those two games, will probably get home. But it's going to be an interesting tournament, and I will be watching some Euro 2020. Won't be putting too much money on it, but I will be watching it.
Yeah, looking forward to it as well. Of course, I'll be sending out the newsletter. I didn't send one out last week, but if you haven't subscribed yet, it goes out every Friday morning. Just click on the link down below the video, and you can see what our best bet's going to be on the weekend. I'll be listening intently tomorrow. I always go to the best bet section and hear what the boys say. Of course, I won't be putting up Gavin's bets, seeing that I like the Bulls in that game. So Gavin's definitely not getting headline status in tomorrow's newsletter. But I've got a feeling Alex will get more than an honourable mention. Gentlemen, thanks very much. Also to all the boys in the live chat, as usual, thanks a lot. It certainly makes the show. It was great having you all aboard. And let me start with you, Mr. Oracle. Have a great weekend. And let's look forward to that Sharks-Bulls game and maybe a bit of banter around there.
Yeah, thanks very much. Cheers, guys, everyone. And thanks very much. Should I say not thanks very much. Well done, Alex, on your debut. And hope to see you on the show again with your professional background setup.
Well,
yeah, look.
I've told him I'm going to get him into Tour de France betting, Gav.
I'm interested. I've always been interested. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you and I had lots of personal bets on that over the years. I love the Tour de France. I'm not as educated as you are, but I've always enjoyed it.
Well, what I'd like to see is Alex on one of the Tour de France. We'll do a Tour de France show, but Alex has got to be on his bike. He's got to be on his bike and talking us through. That'll be a good one. But anyway, guys, thanks, Peter, Paul. Thanks a lot. Brady, excellent. And, of course, the conductor, good having you aboard. Alex, great debut, mate. Look forward to seeing how your UK tips in particular go. I could feel, you can always feel when someone's talking with confidence and you've got some big confidence, particularly in your best bet there. But great having you on the show, and we'll see you again soon.
Great. Thanks so much, Brent. Cheers, guys. That's good fun.
Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week for the handicap.